Hello everybody, this is Pastor Green. We're doing another Bible study, Exodus chapter 34. If you'd like me to come speak at your church, or if you have any questions, you can email me at godsohman@gmail.com. And I wanted to start this by saying that 2 Timothy 3:16 and 17 says, all scripture is given by inspiration of God, and is profitable for doctrine, reproof, or correction, for instruction in righteousness, that the man of God may be perfect, thoroughly furnished unto the all good works. So the Bible is given to teach people stuff, to correct people, to tell you how to find righteousness. And it says that the man of God may be perfect thoroughly, not throughout, thoroughly. It means he needs to fill all of you for all good works. You know, in the book of Nehemiah, it says, so they read the book and the law of God distinctly, and gave the sense, and caused them to understand the reading. So that it basically, reading the book was three things. You have to read it, you have to give the sense, you have to understand it, then you have to understand it. So a pastor's job is to read you what it says, to explain what it says, and help you understand it. It is not a pastor's job to correct it or to change it. Exodus 34 verse 1 says, and the Lord said unto Moses, hew thee 2 tables of stone like unto the first, and I will write upon these stones the words that were in the first tablets which thou brokest. So just recently, Moses is walking down from Mount Sinai. He sees a golden calf. He gets upset, and he throws the tablets on the ground and breaks it. So God's saying, we're gonna have to redo this. You messed up the first one. We're gonna have to redo it. I saw this comment on somebody's channel. They said it's gonna be great when he gets to Exodus 34 and reads the 10 Commandments that the King James actually calls the 10 Commandments, where 5 of them are totally different. Explain that contradiction, Kent. You can't, but I'm sure you can make something up. And if it were any other holy book, you would call it a contradiction. So the question is 34 actually give you brand new commandments? We're gonna find out. Exodus 34 verse 2. And be ready in the morning, and come up in the morning unto Mount Sinai, and present thyself there to me on top of the mount. So God's telling Moses, you're going to come back up on this mountain, we're going to redo the 10 Commandments. You know, come to me, present yourself to me. And we see that written in the Bible a couple times. If you look at Job 1, it says, and now there was a day when the sons of God came to present themselves before the Lord, and Satan came also among them. So the sons of God and Satan has to go to the Lord to present themselves. 2 Corinthians 5. For we must all appear before the judgment seat of Christ, that everyone may receive the things done in his body according to what he has done, whether it be good or bad. Everybody, whether you believe or not, are going to come before God one day. We're going to go up to heaven and sit in the judgment seat of Christ, and Christ is going to judge us, whether we be good or bad. Doesn't matter if you believe or not. Everybody's going to be judged. Back to Exodus 34. And no man shall come up with thee, neither let any man be seen throughout all the mount, neither let the flocks of the herds feed before that mount. So nobody's allowed to come up to Mount Sinai except for Moses. And he hewed 2 tables of stone like unto the first. And Moses rose up early in the morning, and went up to Mount Sinai. And the Lord commanded him, and took his hand the 2 tablets of stone. So he made 2 tablets just like the first one, and took it up to Mount Sinai. And the Lord descended with the cloud, and stood with him there, and proclaimed the name of the Lord. And the Lord passed before him, and proclaimed, the Lord God, merciful and gracious, long-suffering and abundant in goodness and truth, keeping mercy for thousands, forgiving iniquity and transgressions and sins, that will no means clear the guilt, visiting the iniquities of the fathers upon the children, and upon the children's children, and upon the 3rd and the 4th generation. So God's saying that I am not going to clear anybody's guilt. Everybody deserves hell. Everybody that sinned is going to hell. And people say, well, hold on. If everybody's going to hell, God's not going to clear your guilt. How do you get saved? Well, see, what happened was Christ came down and took your place. He took your punishment. He basically said, I am going to take your punishment so that you can go to heaven. That's how it works. And Moses made haste, and bowed his head toward the earth, and worshipped. And he said, If now I have found grace in thy sight, O Lord, let my Lord, I pray thee, go among us. For it is a stiff-necked people, and pardon our iniquity and our sin, and take us for thine inheritance. So God said previously, you're going to go and you're going to take over these areas. I'm going to send an angel up there to take care of these people for you. But I'm not going to go with you before, because you're stiff-necked, and I might destroy you. So I'm not going to go with you. And so Moses is telling God, oh God, please, I pray ye, please come with us. We need you to be with us. And he said, Behold, I make a covenant before all the people. I will do marvels, such as not have been done in all the earth, nor in any nation. And all the people among which thou art still see the work of the Lord. For it is a terrible thing that I will do unto thee. Observe that which commandeth thee this day. Behold, I drive out before ye the Amorites, the Canaanites, the Hittites, the Perizzites, the Hivites, and the Jebusites. So God says, I'm gonna go ahead of you, and I'm gonna get rid of these people. Take heed unto thyself, lest thou make a covenant with the inhabitants of the land, whither thou goest. Let it be a snare for the midst of thee. But if you destroy their altars, break their images, and cut down their groves. So God's saying, I'm gonna get rid of these people. They're bad people. And then you can come in here and you can settle. But don't make a covenant with them. Don't make a deal with them. Because if you do, it's going to be a snare to you. I got a question. I want you guys to comment below. Have you ever done something wrong because you were with other people that were doing something wrong? And if you weren't with them, you wouldn't have done it? Like smoking or drinking, stealing something. Have you ever done something wrong? Not because necessarily you were wanting to do something wrong, but because you were with other people that did something wrong. And that's what God's saying here. Don't make a deal with them, because it'll be a snare to the midst of thee. In Jeremiah 10 it says, Thus saith the Lord, Learn not the ways of the heathen, and be not dismayed at their sight of heaven. For the heathen are dismayed at them, for the customs of the people are vain. These people are worshiping false gods. They're sacrificing food to idols. They're doing all these bad things. So I don't want you to learn what they're doing. I don't want you to follow their bad steps. Exodus 34:14. For thou shalt worship no other God, for the Lord, whose name is jealous, is a jealous God. First commandment, I am the Lord thy God. Thou now shalt no other gods before me. So that's definitely a commandment. I am the Lord thy God. Don't have other gods before me. And again, for thou shalt worship no other gods for the Lord, whose name is jealous, a jealous God. Lest thou make a covenant with the inhabitants of the land, and they go a-whoring after their gods, and do sacrifices unto their gods, and no one call thee, and thou eatest of thy sacrifices. This is not a commandment. This is just saying, worship only God, because if you don't do that, you're gonna basically want to follow what they're doing. You're gonna want to see what they're doing. You're gonna want to follow what they're doing. You're gonna sacrifice to their gods and worship their gods. And I don't want you doing that. So if you look here, remember, I am the Lord thy God, thou shalt have no other gods before me. And the second one, thou shalt not make any graven images or worship them. So he's saying, you're only going to worship me, you're not going to worship them and their idols. So here we go, number 17. Thou shalt make thee no molten gods. The feast of unleavened bread shalt thou keep. 7 days shalt thou eat unleavened bread, as I commanded thee, at the time of the month of Abi. For the month of Abi thou camest out of Egypt. So he's saying, don't follow these other people, worship their gods, and worship their gods. Do not make any other graven images. That's a commandment there. That's the second commandment. Exodus 34:19. All the opening of the matrix is mine, and every firstling among thy cattle, whether an ox or sheep, that is male. A matrix is basically the opening of the vagina. Any firstborn, whether it be human or animal, belongs to God. The first fruits of your produce goes to God. Anything that opens the matrix, the firstborn, belongs to God, and you must give that to God. But the firstling of an ass shall thou redeem with a lamb. If thou redeemeth him not, you shall break his neck. All the firstborn of thy sons shall thou redeem, and none shall be appeared before me empty. What God's saying here is, every firstborn I want. So if you have an animal, you sacrifice it to God. If you want to keep this animal, let's say you got a really nice ox or a really nice horse or something, and you think it's a really good quality, you can keep it, but you gotta pay. You gotta pay for it. So it's saying here, if you have an ass or like a donkey, and it's going to be a good workhorse, you can redeem it with a lamb. If you're not going to redeem it, you got to kill it. You got to break its neck. If you have your firstborn child, that belongs to God. That's for God's purposes. He's not necessarily saying you to kill it. He's saying he's going to work for God. He's going to work in the temple, the tabernacle. He's going to be, belong to the Lord. But if you want to redeem him, that's fine. But you got to pay something to do it. You have to pay for all these firstborn things. 6 days shalt thou work, but on the 7th day thou shalt rest. In earning time and in harvest shalt thou rest. And thou shalt observe the feast of weeks, for the first feast of week harvest, and the week of the ingathering of the year's end. That's going to be number 4. Remember the Sabbath day and keep it holy. So we went over 3 commandments so far. Thrice in the year shall your men children appear before me, the Lord God, and the God of Israel. For I will cast out the nations before thee, and enlarge thy borders. Neither shall any man desire thy land, or thy land go up to him before the Lord thy God thrice in the year. If you remember, when Jesus was 12, they had to go to town, and they had to basically present himself into Jerusalem. At the age of 12, the Jews believed that the child's an adult, so any child from 12 and up, any male basically, has to go to see the Lord 3 times a year. That's their rules. That's not a commandment. That's not one of the 10 commandments. That's just one of their rules. It's one of their ideas. It's not a commandment though. Thou shalt not offer the blood of my sacrifice with leaven, neither shall the sacrifice of the feast of Passover be left in the morning. This is not one of the 10 commandments. This is basically a rule. If you remember the Passover, if there's any food left over, you burn it. That's just what it says. The first of thy firstfruits of thy land shall thou bring to the house of the Lord thy God, and thou shalt not see the goat and the child's milk. This is, again, something you learned at the Passover. This is how you're going to do it. And it's funny that it says, thou shalt not see the kid in its mother's milk. And that's why most Jews today don't eat cheeseburgers. They believe that, the milk that made the cheese could possibly be the milk, the meat that the mother, or basically the meat could be the mother's milk. So they don't put them together, but that's not what it says. It says basically don't boil a baby kid in its mother's milk. There was a joke there. It says Moses went up on Mount Sinai, and the Almighty is surveying the text of the Torah to him. And they came to, do not cook a kid in its mother's milk. And Moses looks up and says, by this, I assume you mean we should not eat meat and milk dishes at the same time, which that's what Jews do today. No, replies the Almighty, I simply said, do not cook a kid in its mother's milk. Okay, says Moses, do you mean we should have separate dishes for meats and milks? Again, the Jews do that today. No, said the Master of the Universe, I simply said, do not cook a kid in its mother's milk. Fine, says Moses. So you mean we should wait 6 hours after meat before we can have the milk? All right, says Moses. All right, Moses, says the Holy One, have it your way. See, these Jews have these rules. They have these ideas that we got to follow these certain rules, but that's not what God said. God simply said, if you're going to eat a baby goat, you don't cook it in its mother's milk. That's all it says. You don't boil it in its mother's milk. You roast it, you cook it over a fire. That's what you do. But the Jews have taken this to a whole other level. The book of Leviticus. All through here it says statutes and judgments, statutes and judgments. Observe all my statutes and all my judgments. Keep my statutes and judgments. You see, the Bible has statutes and judgments. Think about this. Growing up, you had rules. You have to follow the rules. These are the rules. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. There's always also preferences. I prefer you not to do that. I wouldn't like it if you do that. There's the ideas that hey, you shouldn't do this or that. But there's different things. There's rules. There's judgments. There's commandments. There's preferences. But those are all different. I prefer you not to do that doesn't mean it's against the law. It just means that they prefer you not to do it. It would make them happy if you didn't. But a rule means you can't do it. Look at Deuteronomy 11. Therefore thou shalt love the Lord thy God, and keep his charge, and his statutes, and his judgments, and his commandments. That's 4 different things. Charges, statutes, judgments, commandments. God's saying there's multiple different things you got to follow. Nehemiah 9. Thou camest down among the Mount Sinai, and spokest with them from heaven, and gave them right judgments, true laws, good statutes, and commandments. 4 things again. And madest known unto them thy holy Sabbath, and commandeth them precepts, statutes, and laws. So you have differences between the 10 commandments, different precepts, different statutes, and different laws. There are different things you have to follow, and they have different severities of punishment. Back to Exodus 34:27. And the Lord said to Moses, Write thou these words, for after the tenor of these words I have made a covenant with thee and with Israel. So God's talking to Moses. And he, being Moses, he was there with the Lord 40 days and 40 nights. He neither ate bread nor drank water. And he, talking about Moses, wrote upon the tables with the words of thy covenant the 10 commandments. The first set of 10 commandments, God wrote on a rock with his finger. The second 10 commandments, Moses wrote. There you go, he. So again, Trey, there's nowhere does it say that chapter 34 is listed all 10 commandments. God's highlighting a few commandments and gives other statutes and judgments. There is no contradiction here. Exodus 34:29. And it came to pass when Moses came down from Mount Sinai with the 2 tables of testimony in Moses' hand, when he came down from the mount, that Moses wist not that the skin of his face shone while he talked with him. So basically, somehow Moses' face was shining. You know, sometimes when you're with the Lord, things change. When you're with people, sometimes something's different about you. Maybe because you just spoke with God. Maybe that you had something special happen to you. Maybe you're a new Christian. Something is different about you. And I would say that if nothing changes, do you really get saved? Because God's going to change you somehow. If you look at 2 Corinthians 5, therefore, if any man be Christ, he is a new creature. Old things are passed away, and behold, all things become new. When you become saved, something happens. Acts 6, and all that sat in the council, looking steadfast on him, saw his face as it had become the face of an angel. You know, when you become a Christian, things are changed. When you have a different mindset, things are changed. Anybody that's a Christian, you can comment below, will say that people just say there's something different about you. There's something about you that's different. Some people say, hey, I want to know what you got. I want to know what you have. I want a piece of that. You have a different mindset, a different idea, and you're just different. Exodus 34:30. And when Aaron and the children of Israel saw Moses, behold, the skin of his face shone, and they were all afraid to come nigh him. And Moses called unto them, and Aaron and all the rulers of the congregation returned to him, and Moses talked with them. And afterwards all the children of Israel came nigh, and they gave him in commandment all that the Lord had spoken with him in the Mount Sinai. Until Moses had done speaking with them, he put a veil on his face. So Moses put some type of veil over his face because he was shining, and that was distracting some people. But when Moses went before the Lord to speak with him, he took the veil off until he came out. And he came out and spoke to the children of Israel, which he was commanded. And the children of Israel saw the face of Moses, that the skin of Moses' face shone. And so Moses put the veil upon his face again until he went to speak with him. Well, guys, that's the video. I appreciate you guys watching. If you have any questions, you can let me know. On the bottom right of the screen is going to be the Exodus Bible study. Top left is going to be Genesis Bible study. And the bottom left is going to be some video that YouTube wants you to see. It seems lately it's been the previous video, so if you want to check it out, you can. I'll see you guys later. If you have any questions, you can email me. Make sure you like, share, subscribe, and I'll talk to you next time.